Welcome back, everybody, to the Thrivestry Podcast, mastering the art of thriving at life, where we learn how to create change in our own lives and in the world around us. I'm your host, JJ, and this is my co-host, Gigi. Say hi, Gigi.
Hi.
The signature hit hi. And today what we're going to talk about is taking breaks and going on vacations or trips, or just taking even breaks from exercise and things like that, or changing up what you're doing. And then we're also going to go over the study that came out recently about exercise makes you happier than money, according to Yale and Oxford research. So I think Business Insider was the one that kind of got the most publicity for it. But we'll take a look at that article, and we're also going to take a look at the research study itself from what I could find online. But yeah, so Gigi just had a couple of great little vacations back to back, and I just took a week to go to Phoenix and the Grand Canyon and Las Vegas with the family for spring break, and that was super fun. So let's talk about why that's important.
Sure. You want to talk about what like, yeah.
So you didn't have the luxury to take any real trips for a long time because you were so busy with being a single mom with 3 kids, and also with all the work stuff that you're doing. So how were you able to line it up to where you were able to take that vacation?
Well, basically what happened is that the main reason that I couldn't take vacation is because we were basically saving the company from death. Like, it was, if we hadn't worked so hard during that time period, I don't know if we would have made it. And that in hindsight, there's always time to take vacation.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in it, like, you kind of really question, like, is this worth it or not? But even when I say that, like, you could say there's always time for vacation. There's not always, and that's reality of the world, especially when you're an entrepreneur, or if you are an executive. Like, you don't always have that opportunity, because when fires need to be put out and you're one of the main decision makers, you can't leave, right? So I had gone to, like, my cottage, and I had done a couple trips out to Vancouver. I'm in Toronto, but they were never I was always like, call me on my cell phone, I'll be checking my emails. So there wasn't as much of the day-to-day, but it was still very much in work, like not being able to kind of get away from that workplace mentality. So what happened is that
to be clear, everyone, she's not talking about my company.
No, I work for a different company. I'm just on this show. Otherwise, JJ gets too full of himself. So I'm here to bring him back down.
Exactly.
So I work for a company called Mad Lab Group, and we're very open about our struggles, because the reality is that we are a consulting firm. And if we are helping your company through its hard times, like, yeah, we've also been through our hard times, and we know what it takes, and we've been there, and we've come out the other side. And that, to be honest, is just part of the regular business cycle, right? Like, now we had a really rough time because of some decisions that had been made before we had the team in place that we do now. So hopefully not everyone has to go through.
I think, and I would argue that I don't think, at least from my perspective, because I do a lot of work with Mad Lab, is I think it would have had to the business would have had to radically change the way it operated, and it would have been something completely different. I don't think it would have gone away completely, but I think the real kind of decision was, are we going to really press into this and grow in this direction, or do we want to shift gears completely and pivot to something completely different? And I think that was where you were stuck in, was trying to do the hard path to make it grow and be something better.
Well, and even more so than that, like, every business kind of reaches that point where it outgrows itself, right? And you have to decide, if I keep going, we're not just doing this day-to-day anymore. The day-to-day is going to shift into something completely different because it's outgrown this day-to-day as it is now. And if the job is changing so drastically, then you, as and I'm going back to now being a small business owner, like owning a gym, if you are not like into that, and you don't want to own a multi-million-dollar corporations with 25 locations all around Southern Ontario, like, that's a very different job than showing up and coaching some group classes every day, right? Which very much might be what your thing is now. So you kind of you get to that place, and you kind of have to decide, is it worth the work to go through the growth and to go through the growing pains, or do I just want to stay where I am? And we had decided that we did want to go through the pains and shift everything over and cut our core down and kind of shift, and then so that we could now grow. So now we're at this point where we're scaling exponentially, but we had to go through a really hard time to get there, which meant that we didn't take any vacation. So
well, as a quick addition to that, I just read it today, and Seth Godin is one of my favorite authors, and he talks about the differences between a freelancer and an entrepreneur. And I think a lot of gym owners they just want to be freelancers, which means you serve people. You do the work, that you're actually selling. You're creating the product, which is coaching or whatever. And yeah, like the lease and the dealing with the website and social media stuff, you do that just because it enables you to do the job, the work. But your vision isn't necessarily to grow, which is what an entrepreneur would be thinking about, right? Is how do I put systems in place and hire the right people to do the work and work on the business, not in the business. And so I think that's kind of the journey that you're describing as well. But again, going back to this taking rests or taking vacations and breaks, it's something that I've struggled with for a long time. And Gigi makes fun of me because I used to always go on these trips, but then I always end up working when I was on these trips, and I wasn't very good.
It was awful. I remember so JJ used to do a lot of work for Mad Lab Group. Now that Thrivestry is growing so much, he stepped down, but we used to work together very closely, and I was chief of operations. So one of my main jobs, even though at the top, the executive teams didn't take any vacations, I was always really adamant that my staff did take vacation. And so I'd be on JJ and be like, you go, like, when are you taking time off? I'm not going to call you. Like, we're not doing, remember all those times where I'm like, no, I'm not going to talk to you. It's 8 days. I'm going to tell everyone to leave you alone. You're like, but I'm going to be working anyway. And you'd still be online and you'd still be emailing. And it was awful. You were the worst vacation taker I've ever met.
Well, and learning about myself. Yeah. Like I was always trying to just continue to, produce and serve people and help people and not really taking time for myself and my family and everything else. And so, it was, I think, I basically had enough people finally telling me, and it finally got to those burnout points where, as entrepreneurs, we keep thinking of the next thing that needs to get done. Oh, I just got to get that done. And I just got to get that done. I just got to get this many more members. I just got to get, this project finished. And so you're always adding more things to your plate, but you're never actually stopping to reflect and kind of just take a break. And I think that's not good for your sanity. And that's not good for your health. And again, what I've found is that I need to take these breaks. But what I also realize, like you said, there are periods of time where we're going to be in a 6 month, a year, maybe even a year and a half, where we really have to push hard because of just life and the business. But if you don't schedule, these breaks occasionally, and I've written about this in my articles and things, you have to schedule it in advance so that then you can plan for it. But then you think, well, why, so what? I feel great. I don't need a break. Well, usually you don't need a break until you need a break.
Well, it's too late.
Yeah,
and then you can't see the forest for the trees anymore because you're so in it, right? That you don't get it.
And exactly. And what happens is, I think too, we forget that when we've been grinding for so long, we're actually far less efficient at actually producing and being creative and making the high level decisions because we're so burned out. And so you're actually not being as productive as you think, because you've stretched too many days in a row. I mean, I don't know what my record is, but I've definitely gone 50 or 60 days in a row without having a day off, so even like every Sunday was working, for 4 or 5 hours on the computer doing programming or whatever, like that's pretty easy to do when you own a gym or when you own your own business, just because there's always more stuff to do. Oh, I got to get this done before next week. Oh, I promised somebody I would do this, and it's, like I said, I lost count at one point. I just realized so then now what I do is, every Sunday I try to not work. Right. So I try to take a Sabbath. If it was good enough for the Lord to have to take a break every 7 days, I think it's good enough for me. No, but I try to spend time with the family. I do stuff around the house. I may read articles online. It's like reading the newspaper, so to speak. But I really try to stay off social media. That's a big rule for me now, is just to try to stay off social media on Sundays. Just because that's work for me. Then I get sucked in and hours go by and it's just not, and I feel so much better on Monday and so much more, prepared for the week and creative and everything when I have. So that's the first one, is at least find one day a week where you can just do, not work. Right. And then try not to fill it up completely with like sports activities and events and all that stuff like that. Let it be some downtime. Obviously, if it's life-giving and it's making you, again, giving you energy, then you can do that stuff. But definitely try not to overbook it. Just because you're not working doesn't feel like you need downtime. You do. And then try to take a long weekend every month or two, right? Where you get a good 2 or 3 days in a row where, again, you can put away the computer and not deal with the emails or anything for a couple of days in a row. And that's the start. And the big one is to book a week vacation, right? That's the hardest thing, I think, for most entrepreneurs. And I think too that a lot of people think it's a big expense, right? Like it's expensive, but it could just be going to stay with family out of town or going camping or something like that. It doesn't have to be.
The best way that I heard it described for how much money to spend on a vacation is if you decide on a percentage of your income that you're basically going to dedicate towards vacations every year, and you just have a separate bank account that you can put in. And if it's like 2%, 4%, 0.5%, whatever, 25%, who knows? That's how I live my life. And then basically, depending on how much money is available, is going to dictate whether you're doing like a road trip to Ottawa, which for me is like a 4-hour drive, and I have family that stays there. So it's literally just the cost of gas. Or it's like a trip to Disney World. You know what I mean? So it's like you kind of allow that to happen. But the other thing is if you plan in advance, and this goes back to your point to like, if you don't plan it, you won't do it. And that was where after we went through this really hectic time, Christmas rolled around, and I always make sure that everyone takes time off at Christmas, even the executives. And we've always given ourselves a week or two, plus the company basically shuts down for 2 weeks as well. We also don't really want our clients working. So if we're not working, then it gives them permission to not work, either the entrepreneurs and the business owners. So it helps them. But we had taken kind of like 2 weeks each, and then we all kind of touch base, and we were like, well, nothing's really going on. There's no real fires to put out. New Year's is next week. And we kind of all, like the three of us, decided that it would be okay if we took another week. So we ended up taking 3 weeks off. It took the first week for me just to decompress, like just to recover from the burnout. And that was what had kept happening with you. Every time that you would go on vacation, they just weren't long enough, and you were so burnt out that it wouldn't actually make a difference. And you kind of get there, but then get pulled right back into things. And you never really get that full recovery or get to really just be your fucking self, right? Like when you're working all the time, you lose a bit of you, right? And you just like, you forget about your hobbies, and you forget about the things you like to do in your free time because you just don't have any free time.
Or
right?
you feel guilty if at least for me, I'd feel guilty if I was indulging in some watching a movie or reading a book that's just for fun,
Yeah.
like I feel like I'm man, I'm wasting this time, but that's not how it works.
Right. Exactly. It's not how it works, because you need to be you. But so when we came back, on our very first executive team meeting, when we came back, I said, okay, clearly we all needed that vacation, and I'm not going to let this happen again. So we have a new rule that we all take 8 weeks vacation. So 6 weeks plus the 2 weeks that we're closed at Christmas, which I completely understand that is a lot for most people. Like most people with a 9 to 5 are anywhere from like the 4 to 6 weeks a year. But keep in mind that we work 24/7. Like when we're working, we're working. It's like you said, right? Like it's 60 days on, 90 days on. You don't take weekends. Like especially for Thrivestry and Mad Lab, they're international companies. So sometimes you're doing meetings at 9 o'clock at night or 5 o'clock in the morning, because we deal with clients all around the world with all different time zones. And that's reality, right? But then the harder you work, the harder you play, I guess, right? As cliche that is, but you need that downtime.
It's just like training, right? The more you want to train and exercise, the more you have to balance the scales with recovery activities. And that can be time off, but it could also be, meditation or yoga or, saunas or whatever. There's always got to be a balance.
like active recovery stuff too, right? And that's actually, let's talk about that next, because that's brings us to kind of this podcast and why this podcast was created, right? So we had this 8 weeks that we all agreed we're going to take 6 weeks plus 2 weeks at Christmas. And then what I did is I went out and I planned literally my entire 12 months, like January to Christmas. I had 2 weeks in Florida, 2 weeks in like on a road trip, and a week in Mexico, plus a week of downtime, just me by myself when my kids are at school and at daycare. And the reason that I did that is because it allowed me financially to budget, like what can I actually afford for these 6 weeks, right? So you kind of plan out the whole thing in advance. And if you don't end up doing that or hitting those targets or taking those exact weeks or doing that exact plan, that's okay. But it's better to adjust a plan than to try to squeeze a vacation into a schedule that's already overbooked, right?
Yeah, yeah. And if you, the whole point is if you keep putting it off, you'll go years without having any vacations. And but the other thing is, and this is what I've learned, you know, and like Gigi's mentioned that I would take, usually in the last few years, I've taken many like 1 week vacations, but never more than a week. And that's something that I'm aiming to do at some point. Hopefully this fall will be more than 7 or 8 days. But usually what happens, and you guys, if you guys are entrepreneurs or gym owners, what happens is you have to get so much extra work done before you leave that like you're burned out, and then the vacation becomes a burden and you have to do twice as much work the 2 weeks before just so you can be gone for 1 week. And then when you get back, there's this mad rush to catch up, you know, and then you're like, well, like a week after vacation, we're like, well, I need another vacation, you know? And the other thing I found too is when I end up traveling really far, you know, so I've been to the Caribbean a bunch of times, and it's always this long, you know, train to the airport, you know, a layover, then you get to the, you know, then you have to fly to the island, and then there's like a hour shuttle ride. So you're traveling, you know, 14, 18 hours of travel. Well, if you're only gone 7 days and you're 18 hours there, 18 hours back, that's like a day and a half of wasted traveling. And especially when you come back from that, if you got to go to work the next day, you're not rested because you just traveled for 18 hours.
Brutal. I always give myself the day. Like I never ever go back to work the day that I get back. I always give myself that day because I wouldn't be there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I would be on laundry and time zones and like still like reeling like the vibe from the trip, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Always give yourself the extra day.
So by planning ahead, you know, you can start getting that stuff organized ahead of time. So the most important reason for a business owner to take a break, whether you're a freelancer or entrepreneur, is you need to find out what systems you can put in place if like you get sick or something goes wrong. You need to have these plans or these people trained to do the job so that you can leave. And then if you're an employee, you know, one of the things that's important about leaving is you want your company to miss you, right? If you like drop off the map for 2 weeks and you come back and it was like you were never gone, then maybe you just did a really good job at getting everything organized, but you want people to notice that you're missing because the work's not being done or it's not being done as well or whatever. So when it comes time for that bonus or that raise or whatever, or if you have a competing offer, you can go to your company and say, well, I'm thinking about this other offer. What can you do for me? And if they remember that when you're gone, it's not maybe not entirely painful, but it's very noticeable and they don't want to lose you, that's a good thing. So, you know, for whether you're an employee or a business owner, being gone is really important so that you're missed if you're an employee, and if you're an entrepreneur, it teaches you to think about the systems in your schedule so that you can put those systems in place. And then ideally you'd stretch that out longer and longer, right? Because if you can't leave your business for 2 or 3 weeks in a row, you don't own a business, you own a job, right?
Yeah.
and so it's not the same thing, you know. And so it doesn't have to be where you know the thing runs without your input at all. But you do want to be able to have the flexibility. That's why people go and start their own companies and go into work for themselves, is because they want to have that flexibility. You know, the other joke that I always say is oh, entrepreneur, that must be great. I was like, yeah, it's great. You can work 80 hours you want, 60 to 80 hours. You get a pick. You want to do it 3 a.m? Great. No problem. You want to do it, work through lunch. Yeah, no problem. As long as you get those 60 to 80 hours in, you're good to go. And so it's the
right now if it's me or JJ, but I am just gonna.
Yeah, I think we had an internet issue there for a second.
Hey,
you had a very funny frozen frame. You were like laughing, half laughing. So it's not just about recovery and health and all that stuff too, but it really is those things. And let's talk about it from the physical perspective.
Okay, wait, before you skip ahead, I just want to say that like that basically what we're saying is that if you can't take vacation from your business without falling behind, then that's effectively like a litmus test or a red flag that you're not scaling properly, right? That like you need to be able to create systems and processes in place so that people at the very least you can go on vacation, and then eventually somebody can take over your job, right? So that you can go and do other things, grow other businesses, start other things, retire, whatever you want to do. But it's kind of that first thing, like if you, if your work is so you-centric, like self-centric, that you can't step away without your work falling apart. Having said that out loud, there's a lot of personal trainers out there that get paid by the hour per class or per PT. And when they're on vacation, they're not making any money. And that's a shitty system, right? Like, and if that's your reality, then you're working for a crappy job, right? Because
and I was going to say, even kind of the freelance mentality, if you're like a sole business, if you're a gym owner and there's just you and a few part-time coaches or whatever, there's not very many of you, you should close the business down, a week in the summer and a week in the Christmas time or whatever, so that you can have the break also. And most people are fine with that, like, okay, the gym's not going to be open for this week, so just go. I know there's gyms that actually do. They close down for weeks at a time, multiple times throughout the year, and that's just the gym culture, And it's the same thing with personal trainer or anybody who's working kind of that freelance hourly type of thing. But your lifestyle needs to be able to afford that. So you need to be able to say, okay, I can take 4 or 6 weeks off unpaid, right, and enjoy myself and afford to go on the trip, but also still, at the end of the year, still have some money put away. Right. And so that's what you have to be aware of. So if you're a personal trainer or a coach or whatever, and you're only getting paid by the hour, you should need to be getting paid enough to be able to take time off and it not drastically impact your lifestyle and your income.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So you're going to say the physical side of it, like for taking breaks from training? Is that what you're going to get at?
Yeah. And so it's the same thing, you guys, with training. I know that when I first started doing like CrossFit type stuff, they were very open and said like, you should take a week off every 6 or 8 weeks. Like if you're consistently following the 3 on 1 off protocol that they posted on CrossFit.com, it was just sort of expected that if you were super consistent, like you should take a week of lower intensity, or just not doing any CrossFit stuff. Now, in most people's lives, they end up having these interruptions, right, where they just get busy with work or they go away or travel or whatever. So they're not necessarily, training 3 days in a row, 1 day off, or, training 5 days a week consistently, for months on end. But if you do find yourself where you've set up your schedule and your routines around that, and you are coming to the gym, consistently 4 or 5 days a week, you're going to need to take some week every 6 or 8 weeks where you decompress a little bit. Now with the Thrivestry programming, I actually do kind of program that in a little bit. But one thing I always have to point out to people is that I have to put enough training stimulus into each day so that if somebody was only coming 3 times per week, they're going to get enough stimulus to get better, right, to improve. So, it's the cocktail has to be potent enough for somebody who's coming 3 times per week, but also not also be too much that somebody who's coming 5 or 6 days a week, not totally overwhelming. But I'll tell you what, if you try, like I said, if you're hitting it hard, 5 days a week or more, you have to build up to that over time. And even then, like you should take one of those days should be like an easier day. And that's why we have 3 contexts and Thrivestry. You have practice context, competition context, and mental toughness. And the practice context is 60% of the time. And there's a lot of times when I write in there, like, don't go hard today. Today is just, we're just checking it off the list. We're punching the clock. It's not about totally beating ourselves down. If you haven't been in the gym for a couple days and you're going to be gone for a couple days, then yeah, you could step it up today. But if you're somebody who has been coming, this will be your third day in a row or fourth day in a row, you should lay off. So you always got to pay attention to that balance. And so we don't actually build muscle and things in the gym. We don't burn fat in the gym. That happens outside of the gym as a result of our workouts.
During a rest period.
Yes, during rest, right? When we're recovering from our workouts, the exercise that we do in the gym is the signal or the stimulus to change that, right? To cause that change in our body. There's somebody outside with a leaf blower right now. I don't know if you guys can hear that.
It's like, is someone vacuuming in your house?
Yeah, with the leaf blowers. There's people that they're trying to get people to like sign ordinances to make them not use gas powered leaf blowers anymore because of the noise complaints. It's pretty funny, but everybody doesn't want to be bothered. But yeah, and so now if you're only training 3 times per week and you have every once in a while you miss a day, you could do that. You probably wouldn't need to have a 4 or 5 day downtime because you're already getting enough rest, right, built into that.
But having said that, what I do, and what I do is I basically marry my work vacation schedule with my workout schedule, right? So like, I know right now we've got 8 weeks before the summit, so I kind of had like a 10-week period from my last business trip to California, and then our next business trip out to Miami, which means that my workout, like that time period, is going to be 10 weeks. And then I'm going to stop and I'm going to take that as like a deload period when I'm away, because in my mind, I fucking hate working out when I'm on vacation. And I get it that like some people like doing that, but I have 3 kids and most of the time they're with me, and I'm not going to like dump them in a daycare for me to go work out. Like the whole point is for us to spend time together.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and I'm not saying we don't have active like time, right? Like you were away, you went on a bunch of hikes and shit like that, right?
Yeah, I hiked the Grand Canyon and a couple of 5-mile hikes, and I did go on one run, and then I also went to the hotel gym, which always, for me, if I have the time or I feel motivated, I like to just go see the different gyms. And I did take a picture. I'll probably share it on Instagram. It's like, I saw these shoe marks on the wall, and it was like, I felt like a tracker, like, oh, crikey, there, we can see the tracks from the CrossFitter has been left on the wall. So clearly someone was doing handstand push-ups. And I'm like, the only people who do handstand push-ups at a gym with their shoes on is the CrossFitters, right? Like, yeah. I remember getting in trouble for that on a cruise ship once. But it was just funny because it was like, oh, a CrossFitter's been here. We marked this territory like a bear. But yeah, but if you are going to work out on vacation, it shouldn't be like the same. I mean, some people like to do that where they go and visit other CrossFits and all stuff. And that's great because that's part of the experience. But a lot of times it's just do something. Like I just did some basic dumbbell stuff. It wasn't even like a real Metcon or anything like that. And I felt good. And it was all in from like leaving the hotel room to the gym and back. I think one day was 40 minutes and the next time was like 30 minutes. Like it was like literally I just went down, just busted some stuff out and then got out, took a shower,
Mm-hmm. What I like to do instead of doing like a gym workout is find what the local like physical challenge is, right? Like when you go to Vancouver, you could do the grouse grind, which is basically you climb a majillion stairs up a mountain and you time yourself and then that's it, right? Like, so that's what all the locals do. And that to me is super cool.
It's like 2,000 feet or something like that elevation, right? Yeah.
It's like an actual mountain. It's not like it's a hill. Yeah. I don't know how high it is. You'd have to ask someone who lives out there, but like we were just doing this work trip in California and we did just as much surfing as we did working. Right. So am I going to go and do like a workout on top of that? No, because I was toast from surfing all day. Right. So that's what I like to do is kind of find like, what do the locals do to challenge themselves physically? And I find that a lot more fun than doing a gym workout. Now it's different if you're a CrossFitter and you're dropping in at other CrossFit gyms, because that is so fun doing that, right? Like you get the t-shirt, you meet the community, you find like, you know, the same people that you follow. And it's like, that's a super fun activity. And that's just as cool as like doing what the locals do, right? Because that is.
Yeah. Yeah. But in general too, not even when you're traveling, you know, I do think it's important, like I said, you know, every 6 or 8 weeks, you know, maybe you find something, or at least a few times per year, you know, you go and you use your fitness for something other than just training in the gym, right? And that's part of having a sustainable training life, you know, because if all you're doing is just to stay fit in the gym, you will get burned out and you will get bored, right? So if it could be go with your friend to the Orange Theory class, or do a spin class somewhere, or do yoga, or again, I like the more outdoor type activities, but sign up for the, you know, the local softball thing, or, you know, some other fun activity beyond just the gym, because you got to remember, like, why am I doing this? And it's like, oh, so I can go do everything else. I've been meaning to write an article about kind of the training that we do with Thrivestry, and it's basically the same thing as it's a multi-tool, right? You know, so everyone knows about multi-tools, and I actually have 2 in my backpack, unless I'm flying, and then actually I have 3, because I have a one that I can fly with. So I love multi-tools. And I'm kind of a multi-tool connoisseur, but what I realize, you know, the multi-tool is not a good tool, you know, like it's the idea is that it does lots of things and you have it with you, right, at all times, because it's small enough you can carry it. Yeah, it's true that like you can have this giant tool bag with all your tools and you can do all this work, but you're not going to carry that with you everywhere. And I think some people train like, or they specialize in a specific type of training. And it's like, yeah, you know, you might be doing a lot of endurance work or bodybuilding work, but that's not going to allow that's not the right tool for all the stuff that life has to offer. You know, if you want to just go surfing or you know, go hike the Grand Canyon, like you're not as prepared because you have a very specialized tool set. You know, I was trying to think about how to make this analogy better for everybody. And then I was kind of thinking about, like, again, we had to pack for our trip. And, you know, for women, the black dress is like, can be, you know, you can, if you have the right black dress, you could wear it, you know, just to go walk around downtown, or you could wear it out to the, you know, on a nice evening. You know, it's very multi-purpose, versus trying to pack a huge suitcase with all these different potential outfits that you may or may not need, especially if you don't know exactly what you're going to be doing. You know, so that I believe that general physical preparedness is what GPP stands for. Really is like, you want to be kind of in the center where you can do all these other fun things when the opportunities arise, versus, again, kind of specializing in one area. But it's okay to specialize in one area occasionally, or if that's something you really enjoy. But I think for most people, just sticking with something much more generalized is going to help them have a better life.
So like, work is to vacation as CrossFit is to being active in life.
I think so. Work is
yes.
Okay.
Right? Like, you don't work to work. You work so that you can live the life that you want. You can take the vacations and the breaks.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, and so you do functional fitness so that your GPP will allow you to do whatever you want, like athletically, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So exactly. So the real reason why you should be training, the real benefit isn't to be better at working out. You know, it's,
right.
If you don't recognize that, then you're, like I said, eventually you will get bored or tired of it, and then you'll move on to something else. And I've seen that happen, and then I've had those people come back and say, yeah, I was never as happy or as fit as when I was here, and I couldn't do all the fun things that I like to do when I was just doing Orange Theory or spin or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And we now know that exercise is more important than money. So.
And that's our next. And I was just about to transition to that. Segue. Yeah. So here's the article for you guys watching the video. And so this was Oxford research, and man, they got a really skinny woman for this picture.
It's just, she's leaning over. I was looking at that too. Like, at first you see it. First of all, her arm is covering like half of her, right? Yeah. So you don't really know. And like, everyone looks like that when they lean over, right? You know.
Wow, my stomach hangs down. But no, it's a great photo because she's smiling, and you can tell it's like a genuine genuine laughing type smile. And so, the summary they have here is, they say exercise is more important to your mental health than your economic status. Scientists found this is what confused me. It says the scientists found that while people who exercise regularly tend to feel bad for 35 days a year, non-active participants felt bad for 18 days. Oh, more. 18 days more. Okay.
35 plus 18. I don't know why they phrased it like that. Like it's a silly sentence. But
yeah.
then,
when I first read that, I was like, well, if the non-people are only 18 days, because it sounded like 18. I thought it said 18 days or more, but yeah, 18
so
days.
This article was translated from Dutch.
Yes, it was exactly. It was in
we're a little backwards, right?
The Deutschland Business Insider. But this was also a really interesting point, and this is actually one of the secrets to these CrossFit gyms, is the team also found that certain sports that involve socializing can have a more positive effect on your mental health than others. So one of the key ingredients in most gyms is there's lots of social interaction, right? So, going, even if you have all the knowledge and experience and you're following a good program to train by yourself, you're not going to get that benefit of some social interaction, and, the stereotypical gym where you go to, everyone has their headphones on, right? So it's like, don't talk to me, and there's like no eye contact, and it's just sort of like everyone's trying to avoid each other. It's like the treadmill rules are like the urinal rules. And that, for those of you who don't know, when you go into a men's room and there's a whole wall full of urinals, you never go to the next, you don't go stand next to the guy who's using one urinal and stand next to him, right next to him. That really freaks people out. You're supposed to go to as far away as possible. And when you see the treadmills lined up, that's, you always want to have like a 1 or 2 treadmill buffer, right? Like, if someone's in that treadmill, you don't go to the next to them. You go like 3 treadmills down, so you're not right next to them, and then until it gets full, right? and then they're all being used. But yeah, it's because people they're avoiding it, and so they're not getting the benefits of that of the social stuff. But I did look at the study in depth, and I did find it online, or at least this is a summary posted in the Lancet. And I guess the study was over 1.2 million people. 18 years or older, and they had multiple years that they kind of looked at. And what they did is they compared people of specific economic status, BMIs, age, race, gender, marital status, all those things, so they could group them. And then they basically said, okay, how many times on average did you work out in the last month? And how many bad days did you have and how many good days? So again, kind of part of the theme of this podcast is us to kind of point out some of the flaws or some of the kind of key points. And self-reporting is always going to you always have to take anything self-reported with a little bit of grain of salt, right? Because
actually, you know what? Sorry, I'm going to totally interrupt you because I don't want you to say the wrong thing. But self-reporting when it comes to your mental health has actually been proven to be the most correct way.
No, I was actually going to go there. Yeah, and I was going to say self-reporting with like food or things like that, and even exercise could be a little bit off. But when you're self-reporting how many bad days you had or how well you felt, especially if you were using it like, doing it like 30 days and you had to like fill out a journal or something, so you're doing it in the moment. Those are it's completely subjective anyway, right? Did you have a good day or a bad day? It's up to you. It's up to you. Self-reporting is the only way to do it. And so that's when it does make the most amount of sense. But yeah, and so they basically said that individuals who exercised had fewer poor mental health in the past month than days of poor mental health in the last month, compared to people who did not exercise, but that were matched comparably. And I don't think this is a big surprise to most people. It's funny how, like this gets shared around. Everyone's like, you should work out more. And it's like, everyone knows that you should work out more.
So here's my first kind of critical thinking piece on this. Like I question the causation, right? Like it's a chicken or egg thing. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, okay, so the people that work out are happier. But are people that are not happy, that contributes to your ability to like leave the house and do stuff like exercise, even if it's a walk. Like something so simple, you hear that like, well, just start simple. Like just go for a walk and you'll feel better. Just take a shower, you'll feel better. But when you're feeling mentally unwell, you can't do that shit. Like you're lying in bed, you're not going fucking anywhere. You know what I mean? It's like I work in the fitness industry. At one point I owned a gym. I also have 3 kids, and I went through like some really tough years. And I can tell you that like it is rare, and this is now that I'm like recovered, but when I was mentally unwell, as they put it in here, I wasn't working out. And it's not like I didn't have time for it. It's not like I didn't know better. It's not like I didn't, know that all I had to do was like get up and go for a walk and I'd feel better. It's that you just can't do it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really difficult for me to read through this and not question, is it that the exercise makes you happier, or is it that happier people exercise more? Like that was really tough to kind of put together.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good observation that we should always be thinking causation versus causality, right? Or correlation versus causation, right? So these two things could be correlated. Happier people, or people who are in a better place in their lives, tend to exercise more, or people who are, feeling, stressed or burned out because they haven't taken any vacations, like we talked about, don't work out because they are struggling with other things in their lives. And so that is a really good point for this article, for this study. The other thing too is they did say that the social aspect was really important. And I think that if you're not feeling, yourself, and you're feeling off, then it's going to be even harder to go into those social environments. And I think, one of the things that I think a lot of CrossFit gyms do struggle with is because it is such a social environment. I think a lot of people there's a lot of shame and embarrassment around how bad their fitness is, and they don't want to go around strangers and have to be, put on a spotlight, even though that's not really what's happening at these gyms at all. For you guys who are listening, you probably belong to a CrossFit gym, and that's like they're not like calling new people out for how bad their squat is or how out of shape they are. It's really more about just like, hey, it's awesome that you're here and you showed up and you tried, you put in work. That's all. That's the win, right? But people who haven't stepped foot into that environment yet are afraid to go out and do it, and so that may prevent them from exercising as well, because they don't want to be, exposed, like I said, because of the shame associated with that. They did say that more exercise was not always better. So I think they were saying that I can't remember what the exact how many days per week, but it was basically 3 to 5 days. Yeah.
But then it said basically 3 to 5 days a week was ideal. It suggested that there's a U shape on the return, like your ROI for how much exercise versus happiness.
Mm-hmm.
But then the interesting thing that they said was like, once you hit more than 3 hours a day, then it contributes to this like feeling of unwellness. Now, the only people that I know that work out more than 3 hours a day are people that are professional athletes. And obviously like at that point, if you're an elite level athlete, there's a ton of mental issues and like stressors that come along with that. Right? Like there's the performance anxiety, there's the pressure to do your best. There's, it's also those type of people like type A, gotta win, like that competition mentality that are drawn to being elite athletes.
Yeah. So whatever level they're comfortable with training, they're going to go beyond that as much as they can because they're trying to get ahead, right? They're trying to win, right? So even if they're comfortable working out 3 hours a day or more, they're going to work out 4 because that's the whole point, right? Like they're trying to do as much as they can, and so that they can try to win. And so I think that's why there's probably a diminishing returns because of that, because it becomes a job. It's your job, and it's not as fun when you have to do it versus you get to, Cool. So again, if you guys are listening to this, you probably do exercise at least sometimes. But think more about your rests as well, right? So think about, again, taking breaks, either doing another activity other than the gym, or like so when you're on vacation, trying new fun things, using your fitness for other stuff. And like I said, the whole point of going away is so that you get to recharge and rest. And so try to start with trying to get 1 day off a week, and then try to get those long weekends, and then book, a year in advance, a year and a half in advance, schedule that long vacation, and then set reminders for yourself to actually like continue to plan for it, even thinking about it. Because they've even shown that actually the planning and the thinking about the vacation is part of the benefit, right? yeah, dreaming about it and how great it's going to be, looking forward to it is part of the pleasure. And if you don't do that, it's not, the overall rating isn't as good.
The thing is, if you don't plan it, if you don't plan to take time off and you don't plan to do these fun things in your life will pass you by. And that at the bottom line, like, I plan everything. I'm always looking forward to the next adventure. I'm always like, my nickname in the work, in my job, is the aggressive organizer, because I'm super organized, but it's a FOMO thing, right? Because at the end of the day, if you don't plan it and you don't make time for it, you'll never fucking do it. And then you'll be 50 and you will have never gone surfing in your entire life. And
that happens. And it's really bad in our culture right now, especially in the US and Canada, that it's all about the hustle and the work hard and who worked however many days in a row. And, and then there's like, I've definitely worked with people that gave me grief about going on trips all the time. You're going away again. You're going on another trip. And a lot of those were work trips, but they never like went anywhere. And it was just like, hey, that's your life. And if, some people that works for them. They don't like the uncertainty and the going away, and that's fine. But don't give me grief, because I like to go on these awesome adventures, and like not to brag, but yeah, in a 12-month in a 12-month period, I went to Dominican Republic, Jamaica, a cruise to Alaska, and then also to the Bahamas, and all within like a 13-month period. I will say that I would have rather stacked. Those are all basically 1 week vacations, and I did work a little bit on the cruise ship. But if I could have stacked 2 weeks together, I think it would have been more fulfilling. I think it would have been more a better time for me to enjoy myself, and really relax, because it will take you days to decompress. When you're really spun up and then you had to accelerate before you left, it's going to take you a few days to decompress. So if you can, always try to stack more than 6 or 7 days in a row, and try to get it out to that 2 week mark. And then,
there's a book, Clockwork. It's by the guy who wrote Profit First.
Makowitz or whatever.
Mike Michalowicz. So he wrote Profit First, which is an accounting. It's a cash flow management system for entrepreneurs, small and medium-sized businesses. And he basically took the same concept and applied it to time management. And he recommends taking a 4-week vacation once a year for an entrepreneur. So 2 1-week vacations and 1 4-week vacation. Because otherwise you just don't get to that true decompression recovery where you're actually like able to recover. It's like they say, if you're not sleeping 8 hours at night, you're not actually recovering, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just right. So you got to get that 4 weeks. I personally think 4 weeks is a bit excessive. Like, I don't know what I would do with myself for 4 weeks.
You might actually start working out while on your vacation.
I would. And then I just feel like work again. And then I just want to go back to work. I would read probably about 1 million books.
And that's one thing that I did mention is if you go on a vacation for a week or 2 weeks and you come back to your work and you're not excited and you're not happy and looking forward to getting back into it, then maybe the vacation wasn't long enough, or maybe you stacked it with too much stuff and you were just running around the whole time, or maybe that's not the right job, right? You know, and you won't know that until you step back out of the forest a little bit and really analyze, okay, is there something I can be excited about? And you just need that perspective. And I think that those breaks and those vacations really do help provide that perspective. Every
Monday morning, right? If you hate Mondays, you're probably either not having good enough weekends, like you don't know how to weekend properly, or I weekend really well, or you just hate your job, right? So Monday morning, you fucking hate yourself. And there's a reason why. Like, that's not normal. You shouldn't do that. You should be happy and look forward to your purpose, right?
Exactly. All right, we'll end it here, guys. Thanks again, Gigi. Thanks again for everyone else for tuning in, and keep commenting, sharing. If you have any stuff you want us to go over, any research you want us to take apart, definitely send it my way, jj@thrivestry.com. Thrivestry Official on Instagram. You can hit me up there as well. And I'll see you guys in the next video or podcast.
Bye.